Eric, we had so much fun recording our interview with Taylor Bloom that we've actually broke this episode into 2 parts.
Yeah, man, Jerry, we had such a great time talking with Taylor, and I think you will really enjoy listening to this episode.
So here it is, part 1 of our interview with Taylor Bloom.
I'm Eric from Birmingham.
And I'm Jerry from Boston, Massachusetts, and it's another Sunday podcast. Eric, I am extremely excited about this episode.
Yes, me too. We have Taylor Bloom on today.
I think it was October. I reached out to Taylor through his YouTube channel and said, hey, do you want to be part of this podcast? We didn't even have a podcast at the time that I asked him to join the podcast. We were working on it. And between the technical difficulties and the equipment shortages and learning how to do all of this, he's been extremely patient. And we do appreciate that. So much so that I'm going to make him wait another 2 minutes. Because I've got to let everybody that's listening know who Taylor Bloom is. He's an actor, singer, and musician. Currently lives in New York City, has performed in productions such as Green Day's American Idiot, Julius Caesar, Last Days of Judas Iscariot, Spring Awakening, Romeo and Juliet, The Rocky Horror Picture Show, and most recently starred as Paul Simon, performing in the national tour of the Simon and Garfunkel Story. Please welcome Taylor Bloom.
Hey, guys. Thank you very much. That was quite an introduction. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm at this moment, I'm full to the brim with some homemade hot cocoa that my mother-in-law was happy enough to whip up for the family, and so I'm feeling pretty good.
Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, sure thing. So, gosh, where to begin? Well, the beginning of the beginning is I started playing music when I was 6. I was taking piano lessons and hated practicing and couldn't read music and, wanted to give that up. And then I have a twin brother, and the two of us started taking tap dancing lessons when we were 8, and quit that after a few years and got into doing theater. Finally found something that I could do without having to work too hard, which was just perfect. And then, let me see. I think when I was maybe 11 or 12, I picked up a guitar. I have a bunch of older brothers. I'm one of 5 boys. And my twin and I are the youngest too. So my 3 older brothers were all in various bands when they were high school aged. And so, playing music was a very natural thing to sort of pick up. And so I started writing songs from an early age, and they, started kind of rocky, but got better with time. Then went and studied acting in college, and then moved to New York City. And, pretty much most of the acting that was available to people at sort of my career point in the theater industry came to a stop at the beginning of the year for obvious reasons. And so my sort of primary artistic outlet became music again. And that's sort of where I am at this point, is focusing intensely on songwriting and recording and stuff like that.
You have on your bio, I noticed, you speak several dialects. I noticed one here. It says Southern drawl and twang.
Oh, boy.
And I'm from Alabama.
Yes, at this moment, I am acutely aware of that.
Could you do your finest Southern drawl for me?
Oh, man. Oh, if only the listeners could see that I'm currently the color of my bright red sweatshirt. Gosh. Well, I could just try to do an impression of you, my friend.
Okay. All right. Give it a go.
All right. Give it a go. Let's see. What else? I'm Eric from Birmingham.
That's really good.
Okay, good. Whew, passed the test. Gosh, my glasses are steamed up.
Let's talk a little bit about Simon and Garfunkel Story. How did you end up with that great gig?
It is, I am proud to say, a great story, which I will relay to you now. So my partner and I, Scout, moved to New York right after school. We both went to the same school and graduated in May of 2017. And we were fortunate enough when we came to the city to have a connection through a family friend of mine who was generously letting us stay in her apartment in Midtown. So at this point, we didn't have a place of our own. We didn't really live in New York City. We had just brought a bag each of clothes. I didn't have my guitar. And one day I was just browsing through, backstage.com, which is like a audition listing site in New York. Well, it's all over, obviously, World Wide Web and all. And I saw this, audition listing for, Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel and the Simon and Garfunkel Story. Not knowing much about Simon and Garfunkel, certainly not any more than your average Joe, I figured I'd just go for it. I had to borrow someone's guitar. And actually, I auditioned for it. And then Scout and I went to my brother's wedding. And then we went on vacation. And then when we came back, I had a callback for it. So the whole time we were on vacation, I was like riding in the car, like listening to, the Boxer and stuff, trying to study up to make sure that I was, because embarrassingly enough, I will admit that at the time that I auditioned for this show, I thought that the Boxer was a Mumford & Sons song, which is quite an admission of sin for Simon and Garfunkel fans. But so I listened to the Simon and Garfunkel version and was like, oh, wow, this is awesome. So I just went in for the audition and then went in for the callback. And I gather that they must have had a dark day of auditions because it was like 4:00 at the time that I went in for my callback. And sort of everyone behind the table was kind of like the way that all these auditions work is you like go in and there's like a panel of people behind a set of folding tables, just like sitting and they try to be like, hey, how's it going? How you doing? Ask you about yourself. And sometimes, if it's 4:00 and they've been sitting behind the table for 6.5 hours, they're understandably low energy. And so they were all kind of like deflated when I walked in and I played the Boxer. And I think I may have been the only person to audition that day who knew how to fingerpick because they immediately, all of them behind the table, like perked up and were very excited that there was actually like a prospect in the room. And so, I was fortunate enough. They offered me the job and I went on my first tour with the Simon and Garfunkel Story. It was 10 weeks in the fall of 2017. And it was a huge learning experience. It was really fun at times. It was really difficult at times because it was, I had just left my hometown basically to move to New York, and then had just left New York to go tour around the U.S. and Canada. And there were some interesting personnel that I was working with. And then the other part of it was just, at that point in my life, I was thinking of myself really exclusively as an actor who sings, in like musicals and stuff. And so to be sort of the front man of a musical tribute show performing in sometimes extremely large theaters, it was a big sort of like life change experience for me, for sure.
Did you enjoy the tour?
My first one, I have a complicated relationship with my first tour because I have a lot to be grateful for as a result of my experience on my first tour. But it was also like really difficult. It was not really what I was expecting. And as I mentioned, there was sort of like I had some issues with some of the other people on the tour. I'm glad that I went because it led me to the following tours. But it was definitely, that first one was a rough go for 2.5 months.
All different band members. So when you left that first tour and went to the second one, was it just you that left and you just joined a whole group of other cast members or band members? Or
I think the second tour. So I came back for the second tour, and our drummer, a guy named Bob Sale, who is an astounding drummer, he returned for the second tour, and I'm so glad he did because he's amazing. But then everyone else, all the other personnel, at least all the band members for that second tour were new. And what was great was they were all younger guys. So that's where I met Josh Turner. He was playing the sort of like lead electric part on the show, and then the new bass player, the new Art Garfunkel guy, and the new keys player were all like in their early 20s. So like at the very least, we were all sort of like from a similar generation, and we were all sort of like artsy, musicy types. So that second tour, we just like immediately bonded in a really big way.
Did you ever meet either Simon or Garfunkel on the tour?
No, I never did. I did recently get to sit next to Paul Simon's assistant, but it was completely unrelated to the tour. It was just at a Jackson Browne concert. And she was not pleased when she found out who I was, because I don't think either of them, Simon or Garfunkel, are particularly excited about the fact that there's a tribute show on their behalf.
Is that because they're overly modest, or they're not making any money off it? I mean, why do you think they wouldn't enjoy it?
Well, to my understanding, they have both given their sort of go ahead, but it was kind of just like, just do whatever you want, we don't care, kind of thing. And I think, I'm obviously, I don't know either of them, and I probably know as much as the next Simon and Garfunkel fan about their sort of relationship, but I think they probably just kind of wanted to move on from that period of their lives. I mean, like, people make such a big deal about that period, and it was only like a few years. They were only together for like 5 years. And Paul Simon particularly has gone on to have an astounding career. And I'm sure it's got to be frustrating for him to be like, I have won multiple Grammys by myself. Can you ask me about Graceland? Because people are so excited about, Bridge Over Troubled Water, for example.
In the show, actually, full disclosure, I never got a chance to see the show. That there was like an audio visual presentation that was going on behind for the people who haven't seen the show. And did you touch on things like Graceland and that, or was it strictly just Simon and Garfunkel?
It was basically probably 85% of the show is focused on Simon and Garfunkel, as well as sort of like the context of what was going on in the world when they were making their 5 albums. And then the last probably 25 minutes of the show, we kind of replicate the concert in Central Park. And there's a little, like Ben is my friend who plays art. We run off stage and change costumes. And while that's happening, the band is playing a medley of, what is it? Me and Julio, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, and You Can Call Me Al. And while they're playing that medley, there's info up on the screen that's talking about what Art Garfunkel and Paul Simon have been up to in the interim between when they broke up and when they played the concert at Central Park. So they do talk about Graceland. It's really funny too, because the captions are kind of snarky. They're like Paul Simon won 3 Grammys for this thing, and then it's and Art Garfunkel went for a long walk across the United States, and it's just it's so I years I never looked up to see what the presentation was saying, and one day I was sitting in the audience and I was like, we're shitting on Art Garfunkel so hard right now. Did you talk about what happened, the breakup, or did you just kind of skip over that? And it is dealt with very briefly. I don't think it was my line, so I'm having trouble remembering it, but I think Ben says something and they had some differences and then they broke up. And then we play a song that kind of then we play Only Living Boy in New York, but we play it somberly, so it sounds like a breakup song. And that's kind of it.
I was just thinking about this, but I mean, you were talking about how, Simon and Garfunkel, maybe that was just the period of their life where people remember them for, but they did all this other stuff. And do you think, why do you think that is with a lot of artists? They have this great time or maybe this golden period, and then they go and maybe they have super successful careers, but everybody just remembers them for that one thing,
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what makes that? Why does everybody remember that one period in a artists or musicians, period time or whatever, like the Beatles, kind of
sure.
that.
Sure.
But I wonder what it is that just makes it. That's the thing that everybody remembers them for. I wonder what it is sometimes.
If I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking that there's two parts to it, which is that the first part is they must have just nailed whatever the first thing is that they're known for, because everyone loves it and they're like, we want more of that. Do that some more. And for someone like Paul Simon, he's a great example of an artist who evolves. Everyone who makes, creative art evolves in what they're making. Otherwise, you just keep painting. Well, Winston Churchill painted the same painting 20 times or something, but that was because his daughter died. But like artists will create stuff and it evolves and it changes. And Paul Simon's a great example. I mean, like the difference between the Paul Simon Songbook, his first album, and Graceland are enormous. They're worlds apart. But if you're like, if people really associate you with the particular thing, I think it's probably because you just nailed it. They just loved what you did. And I forgot what the second part was.
No, that was pretty much it. Yeah.
So the world wants to know, at least our listeners want to know, do you have any interesting, funny, crazy road stories that maybe you had an audience that, something interesting about an audience, or maybe some things happened to you guys as you were traveling, or?
Sure. During my second tour in the fall of 2018, we did like 3 or 4 weeks as we drove from the East Coast to the West Coast and sort of bounced around to different venues along the way. And then we were scheduled to have, I think, a 3-day break in San Antonio, Texas. And, it was nice. Scout flew out. We got to spend the weekend together in San Antonio. I got food poisoning, which was a bummer. And then when we went to leave San Antonio, we ended our 3-day break. The 4th day we were in San Antonio, we had a show that night at one of the theaters in town. And that was really cool because this was one of those old theaters that still had that like upper balcony for when there were segregated audiences. And it was totally like closed off. And Josh like snuck up there and like was looking around and like had his little flashlight. Apparently it was totally creepy. That leads me to another story that I got to tell you when I finish with this one. And so we played in San Antonio. It was a good show. It was our first after a few days off. So that one's always kind of a little shaky. I mean, it's always a good show. The audience isn't able to tell, but we're able to tell that it's kind of shaky. We all climbed in the bus. To be honest, we probably turned on some Great British Baking Show because we were really into that as a band at the time. And then we headed off down the road, and then the bus pulls over. And we're thinking like, man, something bad is about to happen. Like whenever the bus stops at the very beginning of a long haul, something not good has happened. And I was like, well, fuck it, guys. I'm going to bed. Like, I don't have to deal with this. I'm going to go get in my bunk and I'll see you guys tomorrow. And I woke up the next morning and we were in the very same spot that we had stopped. And apparently what had happened was these enormous buses, and I think like 18-wheelers and stuff too, have something called a turbo in the engine, which is essentially what allows this enormous engine to accelerate quickly. It's like what lets the engine like get speeds rapidly, like to merge and stuff. And our turbo had blown; it was gone. And so we couldn't like we could go like 70 miles an hour, but it would take us like 30 minutes to get to that speed.
Oh man.
And so we were just like stuck on the side of the road. And what was heartbreaking was that we had like blown the turbo, and our bus driver, who was this great dude who used to be the drummer for Loretta Lynn, lots of stories. He had like spotted a truck stop with like a mechanics station in it as we were going down the highway. And he like went to pull off, and he had gone to turn around and gotten the bus with a busted turbo stuck in the mud. And so we were literally on the side of this service road, just like 15 minutes outside San Antonio for the entire day waiting for a tow truck. We walked down the like side of this road to a gas station and had like Slim Jims for lunch. And then I have a video on my phone of this enormous tow truck pulling the bus like 6 inches until it was unstuck. Like it was so barely stuck. And then we drove it to a mechanic shop, and then we got the turbo fixed, and then the bus driver drove through the night to the next venue. This poor guy, he must have been on for like 40 hours. So, I mean, and we were like good riddance to San Antonio. We were like ready to go. I got food poisoning. We got stuck. The city's trying to keep us. We're getting the hell out of here. So that's a good story. There's a few other ones like that where just like something will go wrong with the bus and it derails the whole tour. There's lots of stories like that.
So when something like that happens, like, is there time allotted for your show dates in that schedule?
I don't think so. What has happened on a number of occasions is something has gone wrong. This has probably happened like 3 or 4 times. And we get there just in the nick of time. Like we were pulled over on the side of the road on this most recent tour because I think we like blew a tire. And we were just stuck there. And we had a show that evening in an ice rink, which was awful because have you ever tried finger picking when it's 50 degrees? It's very hard. But they got the bus on there. We were like an hour and a half probably away from the venue, and they got the bus going at like 3 p.m. So normally we arrive at a venue and we load in at 10 a.m. and our crew has, like 5 hours to put everything on the stage and get everything sound checked. And then we do a sound check at 3. And then, if there's an issue, they can fix it during the afternoon. We have the show at like 7 or 7:30 or 8. Well, we got there at like 4:30 and they just like hauled ass. So on occasion, like there's not really like wiggle room built in. They just have to like make it work, which is just a testament to how kick-ass our crew is.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. That's cool.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're really cool. And it's only a few guys. We have a stage manager, we have a lighting designer, and we have a sound designer. And they just go in and like sort of like take command of the house guys because we arranged to have the house crew available. And they just like, they're so efficient and so smart. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Favorite city? We know what your least favorite city is now.
Yeah, I seem to have given myself away there. Any city that gives me food poisoning is not going to be at the top of my list. I really loved Madison, Wisconsin when I was there. I was there on my first tour, and the first part of the day that we had a break, like a day off there. And it was kind of like a miserable day at first. And then I was like, you know what? To hell with it. Like we were parked at this mall outside of Madison, which is just classic. That's a classic thing for our tour manager to do is be like, we're going to bring you to a great town and make it just inconvenient enough for you to get there that you won't go. But I was like, fuck it. I like ordered an Uber. I was like, I'm going into town. I'll see you fuckers later. And I just like went into, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Madison, Wisconsin. It is a beautiful little town. It's like right in between these two bodies of water. The like planning of the downtown area is very symmetrical. So it's like a very picturesque little place. People are super nice. So yeah, I loved Madison, and they have great beer. Local beer is good there. And the cheese thing, they do cheese curds like no other. It was awesome. It was a good day.
Madison, Wisconsin, and Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I did a few events in that area. And the cheese curds I brought home to people here in New England, and they looked at me like I had 3 heads. They wouldn't touch them. They wouldn't eat them because they looked disgusting. And when you say it's cheese curds, it's like, but oh man, they are
delicious.
They are good. Great people in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met nicer people.
Yeah, I love beer and cheese, so that would be perfect.
Shangri-La, baby. That's how I felt too. This is my new home. I'm staying.
Is there plans for the show once we get through this pandemic to return? And if so, would you be a part of it?
I believe there are plans. They're certainly contingent upon, things going well nationwide in terms of, positivity rates and things like that. But if things go according to plan, then I believe the show is planning to make up all of the dates that were canceled during this spring in the fall of 2021, that is. And I would love to go back out with the show. It's one of the best things I've ever done. I love doing it. But of course that's, who knows what the future holds. I have a couple of friends who I've met through the show who turned down tours in order to pursue their own sort of artistic interests. And the decision led to success for both of them. So it's definitely a model that I would like to follow, as much as I would hate to part ways with the show. If there was some artistic opportunity in my future that would conflict with the show, then, I would probably go with that, just, because it would be a cool new experience. But if not, like, I love going back to the show. It just feels like home. I never sleep better than if I'm on the bus in my bunk, and we're on the road somewhere. It's just the best.
Do you think we can impose on you maybe to perform a little tune for us today?
Oh, it would be my pleasure. We wanted something from the Simon and Garfunkel catalog.
Anything would be great.
How about let's do Cecilia?
I think that would be awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Taylor Bloom.
Celia, you're breaking my heart. You're shaking my confidence daily. Oh, Cecilia, I'm down on my knees. I'm begging you please to come home. Celia, you're breaking my heart. You're shaking my confidence daily. Oh, Cecilia, I'm down on my knees. I'm begging you please to come home. Come on home. Making love in the afternoon with Cecilia up in my bedroom. I gotta to wash my face. When I come back to bed, someone's taking my place. Cecilia, you're breaking my heart. You're shaking my confidence daily. Oh, Cecilia, I'm down on my knees. I'm begging you please to come home. Come on home. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Jubilation, she loves me again. I fall on the floor and I'm laughing. Jubilation, she loves me again. I fall on the floor and I'm laughing. Whoa, 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 whoa,
Awesome. Fantastic. That was
I gave
great.
you the abbreviated version there. There's a big Congo solo in the middle in our show, but I figured.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot for indulging me. I appreciate it. I haven't gotten to sing that song in a while, at least not for anyone but myself.
How can people find you? How can they support you?
Yeah, so the YouTube is a great way to do it. I post videos on there every Sunday morning, not unlike you guys. It's a great time to get some new content. So if you want to check out anything that I've covered or any of the originals I've posted on YouTube, you can find me there. If you just search Taylor Bloom, maybe if you search like Taylor Bloom the Boxer or Taylor Bloom Bleecker Street, those are some videos that have slightly higher views, so they might come up a little quicker. Or if you're interested in checking out some of the stuff that I've done with Josh Turner, which is sort of how I the sort of on-ramp into doing songs on YouTube, you can check out Josh Turner, Sloop John B, Bury a Friend, For What It's Worth, and we did another one. We did Baby Driver. And that's with all the guys from Simon and Garfunkel Story. So that those were hugely fun to make. And then if you just want to, follow me or anything like that, you can go to my website, which is taylorblooምnyc.com. And I believe there's a way that you can sort of like opt in for emails there. And I sort of send out blasts on occasion. So, and as far as support is concerned, I don't have a Patreon set up. Which is kind of the easy way. That would be the easiest way. That would be the way for me to make it the easiest for other people to be supportive. And I haven't done that yet. Not all support has to be monetary necessarily. Like, I'm super excited to be here right now. And this is an enormous, not only a form of support, but it's also, very gratifying. It's honestly like the support of being sort of, a guest on like an interview podcast like this with funny and engaging guys like you, making new friends. Like that's tremendous. So, I don't know. I sort of try to deal with people's desire to get involved on a person to person basis. That's not going to be sustainable forever if I become a superstar like Dolly Parton. But for the time being, if you want to reach out to me as an individual, that's great. I like dealing with people that way. That's how I got here right now. So because you reached out, Jerry, and we struck up a friendship. So yeah, that's my spiel about that.
Excellent. And we'll put the links in the description for the podcast here, so folks can go and click on it. And I'm highly recommending to go out and find Taylor on his YouTube channel. And look for Bleecker Street. They're all good. All of his videos are wonderful. And that concludes part 1.
Please tune in to the next episode where we continue with part 2 of our interview with Taylor Bloom.
It's Another Sunday Podcast is produced by Erich and Gerry. Technical advisor Tom Bilodeau. Music composed and performed by Tom Blaze. Check out Tom Blaze's YouTube channel at Tom Blaze. Until next time, it's Another Sunday Podcast. Thanks for listening.